This is a video that I feel pretty strange about making, not gonna lie. But I'll be transparent with you, the reason we're talking about this topic on the channel today is because I saw a post made on the Minnesota Wild subreddit that kinda highlights this, and you know, I don't really try to go out there and pretend that I'm some expert that knows all the right opinions and that I'm the guy that you should turn to for all your number one hot takes and ideas about the sport. I'm just a fan. And at the end of the day, when it comes to the voices of other fans that happen to come across my timeline, when I see something that is interesting, I'm like, okay, I kind of want to make a video about that, which is why this post on the Wild subreddit regarding Marco Rossi, Minnesota Wild 2020 first round pick, 9th overall, was intriguing enough to catch my eye. Take a look at the profile here for this player before we proceed with the actual post. Marco Rossi, as we had said, 9th overall, he is a pretty highly touted young guy in today's NHL. Born September 23rd, 2001, he's 21 years old, 5'9", 183 as a left-handed center, and he's a guy that was drafted super high because he was an absolute beast in the OHL in 2019-20. That season, he led the entire CHL in points as a draft-eligible player, getting 120 markers in 56 games played. 39 goals, 81 assists, he was a stud. And a lot of what Rossi was able to do was so mature and poised, his offensive creativity, his offensive IQ, the patience he displayed in the offensive zone, it was all at such a high level that a lot of these qualities in his game were so projectable long-term that even in my opinion, Marco Rossi going 9th was somewhat of a steal. Take a look at the rankings over here. Elite Prospects had him at 4, ISS had him at 7, Future Considerations had him at 5, McKeen's had him at 9, McKenzie at 7, Button at 8. So Marco Rossi going 9th was seen by many people as somewhat of a steal. And the next season's worth of play, he only played 5 games, 4 at the World Juniors and 1 for the ZSC Lions in the Swiss League. This is because Marco Rossi got the virus and he had a very bad time with it. He had myocarditis that actually was manifested because of his experience with the virus, and it was really emotional learning what he was having to go through. He feared for his life, like on a nightly basis. It was quite terrifying, but fortunately for everybody involved, his family, for the fans, for himself, of course, he recovered. And he made himself his NHL debut last season for the Wild, getting 2 games played and having 0 points. In the AHL, though, for Iowa, he was under a point per game. 53 points in 63 games played. Obviously, that's his first exposure to a pro men's league where he's sticking around for the full season because the ZSC Lions stint, he only had 1 game played. So seeing him do what he did was definitely encouraging, and it reinforced a lot of the ideas that we had about Rossi heading into the draft in 2020. That if he really pans out, screw the fact that he's 5'9", this is a guy that's so offensively poised, he's creative, his IQ is so elite that he could realistically be a 70, 80, 90 point guy that maybe has like 50 to 60 assists on a season if he maxes out towards the prime of his potential. This season, though, playing for the regular Minnesota Wild, Marco Rossi has 1 point in 13 games, and this is the Reddit post that came across my timeline that I wanted to read out here for you. It was written by Chummy Spoof, and it says here that Marco Rossi needs top 6 minutes. I'm sure this has been said a million times already, but I really think keeping Rossi in the bottom 6 is not helping him be the player we want him to be. At first, I was all for it because the kid seemed nervous finally playing at the NHL level, but I think those nerves have mostly disappeared. He has a few nice flashes pretty much every game now, but he needs people he can play off of to really shine. In a perfect world, doesn't Rossi eventually end up centering Kaprizov and Zuccarello? After all, he's our biggest name center prospect at the moment, and I think the hope is that he turns into a solid number 1 center for us, given the fact that we already haven't had a real number 1 center in years. And before you comment this, I understand the mentality that every spot must be earned through hard work and perseverance, but at the time of this post, the Wild haven't scored a single goal in 2 games. Our offense is not clicking at all. As much as I like Frederick number 1 center Gaudreau, I don't think he's dynamic enough to be playing on the first line. At the very least, I would like to see Rossi given a few shifts on the top line per game, or even a shot in the first power play unit. Though, to be fair, our first unit is one of the few things this team has going for it, so maybe don't mess with that. Bearing all of that, though, can we at least agree that he should be kept on a line with Boldy? They play well off each other and have experience playing together in general. Obviously, this is just my opinion. In the end, I just want to see Rossi succeed. Let me know if you agree or disagree with anything I've said. Curious to see what others think. Now, there were a number of replies going out there and saying that, okay, well, if you move Rossi up, you'd have to move Gaudreau to play with Boldy, and Rossi hasn't necessarily earned the spot, and that's kind of the argument that Chummy Spoof is making in the first place, that yes, he kind of needs to earn it, but at the same time, why not try it out? You know, he's looking pretty alright in the eyes of this Reddit poster. There was another comment that I thought was interesting to read too. The Lying Prophet says, "You're all delusional. Marco Rossi isn't ready, and not in the same way that Boldy was. Let him have a season in the bottom six and earn that spot, because I personally believe that's the piece that is missing in his recipe. Not because he needs to prove it to us that he can hack it, but because he needs to prove to himself that he can do this." Beer and Cheese replies saying this, "Marco Rossi has not been good. He just straight up looks outmatched every shift other than probably 2. He's had chances with good line mates, particularly with Boldy, and still not look good. He's not cutting it. I have no reason to believe he'll suddenly be great with Kaprizov and Zuccarello. In fact, with how lost he has looked on nearly every shift, I think he'll look even worse out there. You want to put him out there on the first line against the toughest matches opponents have to offer and suggest he'll be better for it when he's struggling against fourth liners? I don't think so. I'd rather not go out of our way to sacrifice wins by dragging down our top line with a guy who has not shown he's ready to be there at all. I'm sorry, but this team isn't here exclusively to hold Rossi's hand on his journey to be a better player. Probably an unpopular opinion, but Rossi needs to go back down. He's consistently been one of our worst players on the ice, getting shown up by guys like Shaw. Playing limited minutes is not likely to help him. He's not suited for bottom 6, and he's not been good enough to be top 6. Rossi has been extremely disappointing thus far, and the only reason anyone is insisting he be put in the top line is because the spot he was drafted. If this were a 5th round guy with exactly the same play, everyone here would be yelling to send him down to Iowa, demanding to know why he's wasting a roster spot. To be clear, I'm not giving up on him, but he obviously is not ready for the big leagues, much less the top freaking line. And all the comments that we've read so far, plus the post itself, they all have quite a significant number of upvotes, so that says to me that a lot of Wild fans are going out there with some pretty diverse opinions. Some say, hey, Rossi is this talented player that has shown glimpses, so why not put him on the top line, play him with Kaprizov, allow him to spread his wings, and be the deer that we know he can be. Others are saying, hey, he's being outplayed by Shaw. This guy can't even keep up in the bottom 6. Why would you add him on the top 6? Send him down to Iowa, give him some more maturity time, and we'll go from there. And at the same time, it's understandable to see why some people would go out there and lambast him so much. He is just coming off an illness which almost ended his life, and he's kind of just getting used to playing hockey consistently again. Last season, he was already a good enough player in the Iowa Wild system that I think keeping him up with the Minnesota Wild definitely isn't too bad of a move if you want to go from a developmental standpoint. I do agree at the same time, though, that this isn't really a development league. You know, the NHL is the NHL, and giving Rossi a first-line opportunity just because of how much potential he has, I don't necessarily think that's the right move. That would be kind of just catering to the future rather than the now, and at the same time, the NHL is a hockey league wherein you try to win games as much as you can today. So for Marco Rossi, obviously, I'm going to go out there and still say that he's got a boatload of potential. Like, of course, I still believe in my guy. He was crazy good in the 67 system. He was crazy good last year in the AHL. Just give him some time, and eventually he'll be getting up to the standard that people are expecting out of him. I feel like this season, if he really screws things on straight and he's able to probably play the best within reason of 2022-2023, I could potentially see him finishing off with 20 to 30 points, maybe. Obviously, that's not ideal, and you would have wanted him to score more points, especially considering he had more points than Lafreniere and everybody else in the CHL that season. But at the same time, development takes time, and some prospects exhibit it in faster rates than others. For example, Matt Boldy was incredible to start off his Minnesota Wild tenure, and he is just an absolute stud right now. I think Boldy kind of set the bar a bit too high when it comes to these top prospects coming into the Wild organization, because based off of what I've been seeing in these comments at least, people are kind of used to Boldy being so good that, hey, it's all of a sudden super disappointing that Marco Rossi isn't as good right away. But either way, tell to the comments your thoughts about Rossi and his development so far. What are your thoughts on the idea of him staying in the bottom 6, getting sent down to Iowa, or being placed in the top 6? Where do you think he should be spending the next few weeks worth of play for his development? And where do you think he's going to end up points-wise to end off 2022-2023? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this Juraj 99. And bye.